The calm before the storm's eye continued. Back at the Operational Command Center, OCC, the atmosphere was a supernova of panic. Mike had just handed the founder, Old Man Henderson, still Henderson because some names are too fitting to change, the envelope. Henderson's trembling hands tore open the seal, revealing the architecture map and the compliance agreement. The room, now devoid of Tiffany's synthetic floral scent, as she was banished to the corner crying, was silent save for the frantic hum of servers desperately trying to handshake with the system components that Zara had quietly severed. Henderson, a man who had stared down the bankruptcy courts 3 times, felt a cold knot tighten in his gut. He didn't understand the jargon, user advance, personal script directory, but he understood the underlined Clause 4, Section B. Upon termination, all personal workflow optimizations are automatically purged from the active server to protect intellectual property. The legal phrasing was a death sentence delivered by a woman they had profoundly underestimated. Purged, Henderson repeated, the word a dry rattle in his throat. It means gone. She made her own code, and when we fired her, the code went home with her. Trevor, still wearing his too-tight Gucci suit, was pale, his sculpted jaw slack. "That's illegal, Dad. It's sabotage." The desperate accusation was the last gasp of his entitlement. "It's a signed legal document from 2014 that we filed," Mike interjected grimly, pointing to the attached copy. "The system is functioning exactly as our policy dictated upon her termination. She didn't delete anything, sir. Her access was revoked, and the scripts, which she was solely responsible for maintaining, were set to auto-clean due to a legacy override she installed years ago." Mike's voice held a grim satisfaction. He was an unwilling witness to a corporate patricide. Henderson slammed his cane on the table. "I don't care about the legalities. Get her on the phone. Offer her anything. The entire operations budget." The ringing resumed on Zara's phone at the bar. This time, it was Mike. She answered, keeping her voice low and even. "Mike, you shouldn't be calling me. You're paid by the hour." "Zara, you have to come back. Henderson is here. He's going to have a stroke. We are completely blind. The planes are stacking up. They're diverting to Delta hubs. We're losing millions." "Sounds like you guys need to pivot and find some synergy," Zara replied, echoing Trevor's hollow corporate jargon. "Did the new dashboard visualize that data well, Mike?" Mike sighed, defeated. "He's offering you everything. Your job back, double salary, promotion to VP, whatever you want." "Tell Mr. Henderson I appreciate the generous offer," Zara said, taking another shot of tequila. The fiery liquid provided a necessary jolt of thrilled adrenaline. "But I don't negotiate my consulting fee with subordinates. Have Trevor call me. And Mike, tell him the current price of my consulting services starts at $5 million, non-negotiable, and I'm paid before I give them the access key." She hung up, the line going silent. Mike stared at the phone. $5 million. It was the price of 11 years of missed life, the price of sleeping under fluorescent lights, the price of every passive-aggressive smiley face Trevor had ever sent. The escalation. The boardroom under siege. The ups and downs of the crisis were now measured in FAA ground stops and Henderson's blood pressure. When Trevor finally called, Zara let it ring twice before answering. "Nicole, it's Trevor. You need to stop this childish revenge and get back here now. You're destroying the company my father built." His voice was ragged, the manicured veneer finally cracked. "Kennedy, it's Zara, Trevor, and I'm not destroying it. I'm letting the structural inefficiencies you created finally take root. You wanted to fire the relic? Well, the relic was the foundation. Now, about that $5 million, do you have a certified cashier's check?" "Are you insane? That's extortion." "No, Trevor. Extortion is demanding money for something I didn't legally own. This is a consulting fee for accessing my personal intellectual property, which your HR department ratified. You fired me to save money, Trevor. Now you're going to pay for the expertise you dismissed." "We'll sue you into oblivion." Zara chuckled, a low, genuinely amused sound. "Go ahead. I have the signed compliance document, your termination notice, no severance accepted, and the flight logs showing the complete systems collapse exactly 20 minutes after my dismissal. The first plaintiff won't be you. It will be the Federal Aviation Administration for loss of regulatory control, followed by the shareholders for gross fiduciary negligence, all stemming from your decision to fire the only person who understood the legacy override. You might win a suit in 5 years, Trevor, but your airline will be a strip mall by Tuesday. $5 million, or enjoy the ground stop. She hung up again. The silence on her end was profound. The silence in the boardroom was terrified. Henderson, listening on speakerphone, looked at his son with the eyes of a man who just realized he'd raised a fool. "Cut the check," Henderson whispered, his voice dangerously low. "We'll deal with the legalities later. But first, we stop the bleeding." The thrill of the deal and the counter-trap. Zara knew they would pay. They had no choice. The financial damage of the ground stop was doubling every hour. But she couldn't just accept the money and hand over the key. She needed her vindication to be complete. She called Mike back. "Tell Trevor to wire the funds to an offshore account I'll text you. Also, I need a signed, notarized statement, hand-delivered to the bar, from both Trevor and Tiffany, admitting that they grossly mishandled the operations transition and take full responsibility for the system failure. And finally, I need my employee personnel file, fully purged of the termination notice and stamped, resigned, good standing, effective immediately." Mike swallowed hard. "A notarized statement? Of admission?" "Yes, it's my insurance policy against their inevitable future lawsuit. Get a runner, the clock is ticking." This demand was the true pro-revenge. The money was nice, but the documented, self-incriminating admission of incompetence from the two people who ruined her life? That was priceless. The climax, the darkened server room. Frantic hours. The offshore account received a ping. Zara checked her bank balance on her phone. $5 million. The sight of those zeros was better than any drug. 7 p.m., a terrified, sweat-soaked corporate lawyer arrived at the final approach. He handed Zara a heavy, sealed manila envelope containing the notarized statements, the purged HR file, and a receipt for the wired funds. The lawyer looked like he wanted to vomit. "Congratulations," Zara said, taking the envelope. "You've successfully secured your airline's immediate future. Now, tell Henderson I'm on my way back to the OCC. But I'm only working as a consultant now, charging $10,000 per hour, payable weekly." She finished her final tequila, left a massive tip for Sal, and drove back toward the airport. The change in dynamic was the most satisfying part of the entire affair. She was returning not as an employee, but as a conqueror. When she walked into the OCC, the scene was chaos, but a stunned silence fell upon her arrival. The lights were dimmed, the air thick with panic and desperation. Henderson was sitting on Mike's command chair, his face buried in his hands. Trevor and Tiffany stood by the wall, looking like children caught breaking expensive china. Zara walked straight to her old station, placing her heavy envelope on the desk. She logged in using the temporary consultant credentials she had memorized. "All right, let's fix the plane you crashed, Trevor," she said, her voice commanding the entire room. "Hand me the backup key to the archive." Trevor, now utterly broken, fumbled with a keychain and handed her a tiny encrypted thumb drive. Zara inserted the drive. The screen flickered. She typed a single, complex string of code, a secret passphrase that no one else in the company knew. The hidden directory containing her 4,000 lines of custom script, her life's work, instantly reappeared. "This," she stated, gesturing to the glowing green code, "is the bridge. It connects your ancient mainframe to the modern world. When I was fired, the bridge was set to burn. Now, let's rebuild it." She worked for the next hour, a blur of motion. It was an action-packed sequence of typing, verifying, and routing. She re-implemented the automated crew roster, cleared the scrambler codes in the transponders, and manually reconciled the 50 major gate conflicts that had accumulated during the ground stop. It was a symphony of logic, a breathtaking display of true expertise. By 8:30 p.m., the ground stop was lifted. The system dashboard went from flashing red to a cautious, solid yellow. "We are operational," Zara announced, turning to face Henderson. "The damage is contained. You can start pushing out flights in 30 minutes, but you're going to be delayed for the next 48 hours. Henderson stood up, his dignity barely intact. "Zara, I'm sorry. Your job is waiting. Take any title you want." Zara smiled, a genuine, tired, yet utterly triumphant smile. "No, Mr. Henderson, I don't work for you anymore. I'm your consultant, and I have 3 final demands. 1. Tiffany, Courtney, is to be fired and escorted out of the building tonight. 2. Trevor, Blake, is to be demoted permanently to the mailroom. He will never hold a leadership position in this company again. 3. Mike gets my old job as ops lead with a full $50,000 raise and a new Herman Miller chair." Henderson, defeated, nodded slowly. "Done." Tightened, Zara picked up her envelope, her face reflecting the glow of the recovering screens. She looked at Trevor, who was now leaning against the wall, defeated. "You wanted a vibe shift, Trevor? You got one. You wanted me out? You got me out. But I took the cost of loyalty with me." She walked out of the OCC and never looked back. She had $5 million, a guarantee that her nemesis was ruined, and the knowledge that she was the reason thousands of people got home for the weekend. That night, she didn't drink tequila. She flew first class to Bali, ready to enjoy the permanent vacation she had earned, not by spiritual seeking, but by professional revenge and the calculated dismantling of an arrogant fool. The story is currently, at this point, approximately 1,450 words. To reach 6,000 words, the narrative must now be significantly expanded to include detailed scenes of the crisis, the legal drama, and the long-term impact on all characters. The Price of Hubris, The Night the System Died, expanded section. The drift had begun precisely at 3:30 p.m., the moment Zara's legacy override was deactivated. The system didn't crash, it just ceased to make sense. Trevor, attempting to manage the crisis, was standing in the OCC beside Tiffany, who was frantically swiping at her useless new dashboard. "It's the Tuesday update lag, Mike," Trevor had insisted, sweat beading on his Gucci lapel. "Just run the handshake protocol." Mike, his face grim, replied, "I ran it, sir. It says, access denied, reverting to default settings." That's when the chaos became visual. The flight manifest, which normally looked like an orderly spreadsheet of destinations and times, began to display random alphanumeric characters. Flight 4002 to Miami was suddenly listed as departing from gate error 404 at T+00000. "What is that?" Tiffany shrieked, pointing at a line that showed a 737 in midair over Kansas, suddenly assigned a new destination, Maintenance Hangar 3. "That's the routing code reverting to the basic late 90s logic," Mike explained, his voice strained. "It doesn't recognize the modern terminal layout. It's trying to assign the plane to an old, decommissioned gate. Worse, it's messing with the transponder codes." The transponder codes were the airline's identification DNA in the air traffic control system. When they scrambled, AeroCorps planes became ghosts, unidentified metal tubes that the FAA tower had to manually track, a critical safety violation. Plumbing, unable to process anything that wasn't reducible to a synergy chart, yelled, "Just call the FAA and tell them it's a software bug." Mike shook his head. "I can't, sir. The system controls the comms logs. If we lie, the digital record will hang us." Zara's personal script handled the communication bridge between the ancient system and the FAA's modern interface. Without it, the mainframe is speaking Latin, and the FAA only speaks English. Shrinking at 4 p.m., the airline's entire departure board went blank. This wasn't a manual shutdown. This was the network failing its own integrity check. The action intensified outside the OCC as calls flooded in. The chief financial officer burst in, screaming about the stock price dropping 15% in the last half hour. The general counsel arrived, immediately demanding an explanation, his face white with dread over the impending regulatory fines. Flush, Year, feeling the immense weight of the family business crushing him, finally realized the depth of his father's error. He hadn't just fired an employee, he had unplugged the life support. He tried calling Zara. The silence on the other end was a calculated, beautiful insult. Negotiation, a masterclass in financial revenge. The negotiation that followed Zara's call to Mike was a masterpiece of legal and financial maneuvering, happening entirely by text and phone, with Mike as the terrified intermediary. 4:45 p.m. The initial refusal. Henderson. Tell her the $5 million is a non-starter. We'll offer $1 million and full reinstatement plus a promotion. Zara, via text to Mike. Tell Mr. Henderson that my time is now worth $10,000 per hour. He wasted 75 minutes trying to lowball me. The new consulting fee is $5.25 million. Paid in advance. Stop wasting my time. Henderson roared, nearly breaking a glass table. The arrogance! We will ruin her. Zos, the general counsel, watching the live newsfeed report that 3 AeroCorps planes had been diverted to competitors' hubs, stepped in. Mr. Henderson, if we don't have this system running by 6 p.m., the FAA will revoke our operating certificate effective tomorrow. $5.25 million is cheaper than a bankruptcy filing. We have to pay. 30 p.m., the psychological price. Mike called Zara, his voice shaking. Zara, they are wiring the $5.25 million, but the lawyers are demanding a signed agreement from you guaranteeing a fix. Irreversible. Tell the lawyers I'm not signing anything. My word and my expertise are my only collateral. However, the price has changed. Before I return, I require Trevor and Tiffany's notarized statements of gross negligence. I wanted in writing that they were responsible for the system failure due to the mishandling of my termination. Discriminate. No! Trevor shrieked. That's self-incrimination. That's career suicide. The general counsel, seeing the legal trap, argued vehemently against it. But Henderson, seeing the entire company vanish, made the executive decision. Sign it, Trevor. Sign the damn thing. It's the only way we have a company left to sue her from. The moment Trevor signed, his identity, the carefree, untouchable prince, died. His signature was the ultimate act of humiliation and systemic justice against his arrogance. 6:30 p.m., the final demand. The lawyer arrived at the final approach with the papers. Zara reviewed the notarized statements, checking every clause. She then made her final demand, the purged HR file and the resigned good standing stamp. This ensured that no future employer could ever see her termination, cementing her narrative as the one who walked away on her own terms, untouchable. This was the final layer of her pro-revenge, financial security and complete control over her professional history. The action, rebuilding the digital bridge. Zara's return at 7 p.m. wasn't just satisfying. It was an act of profound, high-stakes action. She wasn't just typing, she was performing digital surgery on a collapsing organization. The first thing she did after logging in was run a diagnostic scan. The screen exploded with a torrent of red error codes. The system is in a death spiral, Zara muttered, her fingers dancing across the keys. It's trying to talk to the scripts, failing, then attempting a clean reboot, which wipes the residual data, making the problem worse. She inserted the encrypted thumb key, not the data itself. She then typed the secret passphrase. The passphrase, AeroLink Legacy Fix 1998. This passphrase was the final lock. It was a joke she had created years ago, referencing the ancient mainframe's original date. As she entered it, the hidden directory containing her 4,000 lines of proprietary code was instantly restored. The routing fix. The most immediate crisis was the scrambled transponder codes and gate assignments. Zara didn't try to fix the entire system at once. She activated her crew roster sync script, a custom tool that forcefully pulled the last clean roster data from the payroll server and re-injected it into the dispatch system. Result? Within 5 minutes, pilots reappeared on the screen, correctly assigned to their aircraft. The FAA instantly saw the transponder code stabilize. The ground stop was downgraded from an immediate safety threat to a severe delay. The financial firewall. Next, she located the massive log of financial penalties the system had been accruing for every delay and violation. She ran a small, custom line of code she had prepared for just such an emergency, the audit shield. Result? The script didn't delete the fines, which would be illegal. It simply moved all penalty logs into a temporary, sequestered server queue, tagging them with pending manual review, buying AeroCorps 48 hours to negotiate with the FAA before the massive fines became official liabilities. The thrill in the room was palpable. The middle managers who had been paralyzed were now energized, watching their former colleagues save their jobs. Zara was the calm center of the storm, moving with the cold precision of a professional sniper. At 8:30 p.m., when the system stabilized and the ground stop was officially lifted, Zara didn't bask in the silence. She delivered her final demands, securing Mike's promotion, Trevor's humiliation, and Tiffany's complete expulsion. She collected her payment for 3 hours of consulting, $30,000. Epilogue: vindication and the long game. Restricting. Zara's final exit was permanent. She cashed out her $5.25 million, bought a remote property in Bali, and disappeared from the aviation industry, occasionally consulting on highly secure data integration projects for other industries, always paid up front, always maintaining full control of her code. The consequences. The demoted prince. The demotion to the mailroom was brutal. He was forced to wear his expensive suits while sorting packages, enduring the stares and snickers of the ground crews he had mocked. The notarized admission of negligence was quietly leaked to the board by a shareholder, leading to a shareholder revolt against Henderson's succession plan. Within a year, Trevor was forced out of the company entirely. He tried to start a disruptive tech startup, but lacked the necessary expertise or grit, and he quickly failed, ending up managing a car rental franchise, a complete financial and social dismantling orchestrated by Zara. Tiffany, the fired influencer. Tiffany's firing was dramatic. She was escorted out by security, and her public attempts to frame the incident as a toxic work environment were immediately undermined by the widespread industry knowledge of the notarized statement. She lost her brand deals, her followers, and her reputation. Her vibe shift resulted in a permanent reality shift: poverty and obscurity. Mike, the loyal lieutenant. Mike thrived. Promoted to ops lead, he had the respect of the entire floor. He managed the 48 hours of delays masterfully, proving he had the grit Zara saw in him. He often thought of Zara, remembering her last words, "I took the cost of loyalty with me." He understood that Zara's pro-revenge was an act of systemic justice that cleared out the rot, creating a healthier company for those who actually did the work. Zara occasionally checks the AeroCorps stock price. It's stable thanks to Mike. She smiles, not because she wants the company to fail, but because her work is done. Her calculated comeuppance was not about destruction, it was about surgical correction. She traded her polyester uniform and her broken chair for sunshine, peace, and the profound, quiet triumph of having made the universe, and her enemies, finally obey her rules.